Hello, welcome back to another episode, this time with Fasteners at Gecko University. Thanks for having you back. My name is Dale. I want to talk about fasteners in this module. A pretty boring subject, and perhaps you've got some set ideas of what they should be. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there's a reason we use fasteners that we do, and a reason that we stock the ones that we do here, and hopefully this will enlighten some of you on why maybe you'd want to stock these other sizes and the correct way to use them. So um, when I managed another company, I would go out. I had lots of techs, lots of new hires, not a lot of turnover, but bad habits are contagious. Shortcuts are contagious, and they breed callbacks and poor experiences for our customers. So I took it on myself to do callbacks. I'd rather do that than be in the office doing KPIs. I learn more. It's a more effective and productive team if I do so, and I can share the results with everyone. So doing all the callbacks, or a bunch of them, I can find out what's going on and turn that into a teachable moment for the crew at our next meeting. So I'm going to show you things I found and the reason that we use certain fasteners, and we hope it helps you. So I'm going to go ahead and start over here with, you're probably familiar with these. Also bear in mind, we all go into a job and we see somebody that, a previous tech, that I don't think he knows what a new fastener is. Everything's recycled, and that's fine to a point. Uh, it can be dangerous. I've seen some failures from reusing fasteners, and they can be a little expensive, over the long run. But I think it's really worth considering replacing the fasteners most of the time, and we'll go into why. So we'll start here with the lag bolts, lag screws. Type I use here have the built-in washer, and let me show you why we use these three sizes. So 1.5 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch. 1.5 inch, and that's what comes with a lot of, say, openers in their bolt kit. And reason being is, in case you're unaware, here's the bucking, and there may be concrete behind that where we're going to put a safety eye. We put this in, it doesn't protrude and hit the concrete. But if you're using a 2 inch or something else, and perhaps you have seen this, I have seen it, it looks pretty messy. That goes in, it pushes the bucking out, along with the vinyl that's attached to it, perhaps. So 2 inches they have their place as well. I'll use that for general fastening, say in-bearing plates, the top tab going into the bucking. There's no concrete up there typically, so I can get into the next layer if it's there. So I think 2 inch are both are I use them a lot, both of them. 3 inch, obviously it goes way into the next layer. And where I use most of these are going to be center bearing plates or center bearing brackets. And sometimes you just got to go further in on an end bearing to get to that next layer that's behind the sheetrock. There could be a void or something like that. They have their place. One note also is, if you are putting something, center bearing plate up, whatever the case is, always pre-drill, please. That's where most of our customers get injured. They see that backing out because you didn't pre-drill. As the wood dried, a check happened. These are dissimilar materials. They expand and contract at different rates. Lag screw backs out. Customer goes to tighten it. It unloads. The center bearing plate becomes a knife. So do it right. Take the little extra time. And especially the center bearing plate guys, if you see one of these with a bent head, throw it away. I have seen them fail, come back a few years later. I don't know who put it in, but the head was off, and the bearing plate worked out at an angle, and it caused a lot of mischief. So I always put new ones in. I just don't take a chance with these, and I know it's done right and pre-drilling. So on to the next one. We've all seen these on the springs. This is a dog-nosed bolt, square head. So use new ones. If you're doing a lighter door, maybe not as mandatory if you're missing one, but if you're doing a heavy wood door, we've all seen it perhaps. You go back and you'll see the spiraling from the drum slipping. So a lot of times those have been adjusted and we don't realize it. On a heavy wood door, and you take a spring out of your truck and one or two of these bolts have fallen off, don't reuse the old ones that are in there. Always use a new one on wood doors. They need to be sharp enough to grip properly and adjust properly. Very, very important. Next is going to be just our regular bolts. So you've seen the numbers. In case you don't know what they are, this is a 1/4 inch. I'm sorry, I don't have a 1/4 inch. That'll be next. This is going to be a 5/16, and that is the diameter of the actual threaded portion of the bolt. So this would be a 5/16, and then the length, and then the pitch, which is going to be the number of threads per inch. So this would be a 5/16 by 1 by 18. And then this one is going to be a 3/8 by 1.5 by 16. And the 1/4 inch over here, we'll talk about next, is going to be typically a 20 threads per inch, so 20 pitch. So we all know what these are for. Keep them on your truck. I don't carry a little 1/4 inch. Instead, on that, I'll use it in a carriage bolt. So carriage bolts that we use here are going to be round-headed. And that's usually, the round head is for things passing through, like next to a drum or a roller coming down the track. Square neck. A lot of times there's a square hole there, or if not, there's a round one. They'll grip a little better because there's no head to put a wrench on. So a lot of times they'll suck into that hole. So use the appropriate one. This one here, typically for end bearing plates, is most common. If I'm using pre-punch, I'll use the 5/16, and this is also one I will use while attaching horizontal track to a vertical support from the ceiling. It doesn't protrude out as much and never impedes the roller from going by. And this little guy, you've seen them used as jam bracket bolts holding track on. They're great for safety eye work as well. So we use all three. Next one. So it's a carriage bolt, square necked, but flathead. And you may have seen these, I'm sure you have, when you worked on a wood door. 2 1/4 inch. I think this was actually 2 1/8. I've kind of gone towards a 2 1/2 inch. They do protrude out a little bit more if you use them on a wood door, but I use them quite a bit on a steel door. A lot of times as the door fails, the outer skin can separate and delaminate, and I'll need to secure it back till I get another door. And these are great for through bolting. They give me enough length. So 2 1/2 inch, usually the metal's pretty wavy, and I need that extra length to get them started, and I can put a nut on and then keep the skin where it needs to be so it doesn't curl on the jam when it goes up and down. So use them for quite a few things. When you need them, you need them. So very, very important. Track bolts. So these are both 1/4 inch 20 track bolts, little guys. I'm all very familiar with them. They are slotted right here on the neck, and that helps go in the hole and keep it there. So there's two types. There's a flat that comes with a lot of the doors that you'll do, and then there is the rounded top. It's called, with the slot, it's called a slotted. So my thoughts on these. So as I do callbacks, and it happens, homes settle, doors are not always installed perfectly. We may need to make an adjustment for the door to roll properly, whatever the case is. And I'll go in to loosen up the jam bracket to adjust the track. Well, guess what? Arnold Schwarzenegger put that on. I can't loosen it up. So the flat ones, you end up having to cut off. And I just have gravitated away from those unless they're in the kit. The slotted are nice. At least you can get a screwdriver on it, and you got a better chance of taking it off. If you're training an installer, what I always would do is have them put these on, and then they have to take them back off, and then reinstall them again. Then they get it. They've been putting them on too tight, and they don't know. A lot of the guys we bring on maybe don't have exposure to tool use like you or I did. So they just don't know how much is too much. Typically, we get impacts, the guys get excited, and they're moving quick, and we just install these way too hard. So they need to be adjustable. Um, let's move on to the nuts. So I like the flange type with a built-in washer, and these are serrated. So the nice thing about the serrated is when you're up there working and you're moving and grooving and trying to make time, you don't have to put a wrench on the head of the bolt typically. The serration will allow it to go one way, and but again, be careful impacting too hard. They hold really well. You don't need to uh, go overboard when you're torquing. So I've come to prefer these. Next section here is going to be a broad category, tech screws. So we have two types. I think these are the AB type in the brochures. These are the self-tapping type. So the self-tappers, there's two links. I carry both. These are fine for most applications, the shorter one. And the longer ones, if it's a smaller hole and you're really having to impact quite a bit, you can twist the head off. But a lot of times, especially on the service side, we're doing skin of the door that has come off, and we're having to go through a couple layers or something, and you just got to have that extra length. So I carry both. It's just a lifesaver to do. When I can, I will use a non-self tapper. So it doesn't make sense to drill metal away just to have it holding on by a little some of the threads. These hold better in my experience. So if I can, I will use a regular type AB screw. Much better. And on the bottom fixtures, red, they don't paint them red just for fun. They didn't have a surplus red paint. It should be, please use those. And educate your customers that these are red for a reason. That is the danger zone, and educate them why they should not ever goof with that. They should call us out. Washers. So I carry three sizes of washers. And I wrote the diameter of the shaft of the roller here for all to see, 7/16, and that's universal. So this is actually a 7/16 washer in the middle. This will fit on if I'm need, and it's rare, but sometimes I do need to shim out a roller to adjust the side to side. This guy here is great. Sometimes I have to shim out a plate of some type. Then I carry the bigger ones, also gives me a little flex. These are great. It's just a greater surface area, especially if I got a jam bracket. I've got to space out a little bit. It's hidden. It doesn't. We've all seen a piece of a jam seal or vinyl, whatever you care to call it, behind a jam bracket. It looks pretty awful. So I can stack a couple of these. Great area of support, and I can bring out the jam bracket. So I carry all three, and they're lifesavers for me. So the next one here will be your common deck screw and T25 head. We've all seen them. I carry two lengths, so 3-inch and an 1 5/8. So the 1 5/8 is going to be typically for attaching 1x. The jam may be too wide, and I'm going to put some 1x, which is 3/4 of an inch thick on each side. This guy goes in, then I put my vinyl over it. I'm not going in too far, so they're great. And then 3-inch, typically when I'm using these, would be situation, well, the wood's warped. I need to suck it in. We've probably all seen it to where it's an extension spring system. I'm doing a conversion to torsion or whatever the case is. The bucking is pulled out from years or decades of an extension spring pulling on the bucking. It's put in with nails. I need to suck it back in. These work quite well for that. And I'll use 5 or 6 on each side and just stitch it in. Yeah, I use those quite a bit. Fastening wires, that's in the same category. So we've got 2 ways to go here. Always fasten wires. You could use electrical tape. I think I'd rather mechanically fasten it. I think it's a better result, looks more clean and professional, more serviceable. So there's 2 ways to go. You could use the wire nut if you want. I don't. my thoughts on this. That area is a high moisture area where the safety eyes are in the bottom fixture. So exposed wires, I'm uncomfortable with them being left in the open, and this is left in the open basically. I prefer this. This has a dielectric grease inside. It's corrosion resistant, and if you put these on, this is a Dolphin brand. There's other types. You may have seen them perhaps in the box from LiftMaster with their safety eye kit. Put something under with a gel. It'll really resist the corrosion. You won't have callbacks and issues later on. And they work very well. They keep it quite secure. So those are the basic fasteners I use, but I'm going to expand on the definition of fastening. That is putting two dissimilar things together for temporary or permanent use. So a couple of other items that'll fall in that category. So these are number 8 self-tapping screws. So if you are, say, at a steel building, or you're going through pretty heavy tin flashing or something, I'll use these. I'll pre-drill still, even though these have a self-tapping tip. And these are pretty long. I bought these for a special project. You can get them shorter too, but and I don't like the unattractive head, but when you're going into metal or something like that, a nail will not hold. It needs to have some threads. So these work quite well. Again, we don't use them often, but when you need them, you need them. So anyway, hope that helps. Next thing, anchors. So maybe all of you haven't, but roto hammer and wedge anchors or lead anchors or whatever the case is. I'm not going to talk about those today. Really just the everyday common stuff. So if we're putting in safety eyes and there's just the stem wall comes out and the vertical track is right up against, so we can't get eyes in there, and you've got a stem wall of concrete about yay tall, what do you do? Well, one option is, if you haven't used these, are great. I get the 1/4-inch diameter type. It's called a smash anchor. So we drill a 1/4-inch hole into the concrete. This goes through the hole in the safety eye, and you'll tap this in until it hits the concrete wall. And I will use a socket to tap it, and I'll put my socket over it. So this is what it looks like. My socket will go over this, and I'll tap the end of the socket out here, and it'll push this into the wall. And then tap on the head of the nail to tighten it, and I leave it about yay far from contact. That way I can pull that out if I need to. It's not a super high tension area. We're just keeping that safety eye from moving. So anyway, keep these on there. That way you can be in compliance with UL 325 and keep the safety at the appropriate level if it's concrete. So, and they have other purposes as well, but I use them a lot. The other way is drill a hole, and you can use the tap cons. Same thing, you're just screwing them in. So these are basically just a screw that's hardened steel made for going into concrete. They work well too. Galvanized roofing nails. This is what we use for bottom rubber replacement on wood doors. So I'm sure you've seen them. They're pretty pretty self-explanatory. 1-inch size is a good one. That way you can get a little bit of room for your fingers, or I use needle nose, and you can tap them in. Usually, if you're taking the old one out, you can poke this through the bottom rubber and just look where the hole is and push it in, and it'll go in almost all the way, halfway. I encourage you, if it's an old wood door, don't put a ton of them in a virgin spot. You could split the wood. So I prefer to put some in the old hole. If it's not secure, then find a new location for it. Okay. You would think it's self-explanatory, but I want to make sure we leave no moss on a rock. So T25 round head staples, not the flathead. We use the Stanley Boss Stitch cable tacker. I think it's the only, I've seen others. It's wonderful. I think it was made for our industry. I encourage everyone to use one. I don't think there's a better mechanism for applying T25s to wire. Gorilla tape, super, super handy. If you don't stock it, I would. Uh, just 1,000 uses. We use it quite a bit on the linear rails at the very front. We use the clips a lot of times to hold the safety wire coming back to the motor head, but a little touch of this up front and on the rear, keep it from moving. So I'm going to finish up on fastening the jam seal vinyl to the jam. So this is a painted, coated. The coating gives it grip, and they're pretty hard to get out, as you know if you've done any door retrofits. So these are the only way to go. So, and I'm going to thank you guys if you are a competitor of mine, and I show up and I see your previous work. So there's many reasons to do this. If I show up and I'm selling a door, or a customer's interested and I need to make a proposal, and I see that you did this, or if you did this. Now these are painted. We've all shown up where they're galvanized. A large head. It looks pretty unprofessional, or drywall screws or something like that. All I have to do is, Mr. Customer, I'm going to do this correctly. This is going to look nice. I'm going to use a nail made for doing this. It'll be virtually invisible. Um, you know, 98% of the time, I had them at professional. So this shows so awful. So I really encourage you to, if you're doing it that way, consider using the proper nail for the job. Or if you're in my market, don't. Help me sell more doors. So anyway, that's Fasteners. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned some things. We'd like feedback and maybe some fasteners that you folks use that we're unaware of. Again, there's other items, but if they're bent, they're corroded, or whatever the case is, for the safety of your techs on callbacks and the customer's safety and functionality of the door, use the proper ones and change them out. Thanks for watching.